North Korea confirms having custody of U.S. soldier Travis King. Plus, supporters of Niger's junta call for volunteer force ahead of possible invasion by ECOWAS. Welcome to the World News on VOP TV. I am Kayla Abraham. Clashes between rival militias in Libya's capital has killed at least 27 people and left residents trapped in their homes unable to escape the violence on Tuesday. The fighting appears to be the most intense to shake Tripoli this year. Libya's Emergency Medicine and Support Center, a medical body that is deployed during humanitarian disasters and wars, stated that in addition to the 27 deaths, over 100 people were injured in the fighting early on Wednesday. According to local media, the clashes erupted late on Monday between militiamen from the 444 Brigade and the Special Deterrent Force. Reports disclose that tensions flared after Mahmoud Hamza, a senior commander of the 444 Brigade, was allegedly detained by the rival group at an airport in Tripoli earlier in the day. It is unclear how many of the dead were militiamen or civilians. The Red Crescent did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Throughout the fighting on Tuesday, the Health Ministry urged the warring side to allow ambulance and emergency teams to enter the affected areas, primarily in the south of the city, and for blood to be sent to nearby hospitals. Now, North Korea has publicly confirmed for the first time it has custody of U.S. soldier who ran into the north side of the Joint Security Area on the DMZ nearly a month ago, becoming the first tourist to do so. State news disclosed that Pyongyang is investigating the Army Private Second Class for his illegal intrusion into North Korea, adding King confessed to being motivated by inhumane maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army. It stated that the 23-year-old Travis King expressed a desire to seek refuge in North Korea or a third country, saying he was disillusioned over inequality in American society. King was facing pending administrative separation from the Army when he returned to his base in Fort Bliss, Texas, after spending time in a South Korean jail on assault charges. The Cavalry Scout was due to board a flight back to the U.S. on July 17, but somehow made it onto a civilian tour of the border complex one day later. State news also disclosed that King was taken by North Korean soldiers on duty at the time at the security area when the plain-clothed soldier deliberately intruded into the area of DPRK side between the room of the DPRK U.S. military contact and the restroom of security officers along the military demarcation line. DPRK is an acronym for North Korea's official name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Now, Ukrainian forces have recaptured the southwestern Donetsk region town of Oseni, a key objective in Ukraine's bid to cut the so-called land bridge between the Russian-occupied part of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions and the occupied Ukrainian Crimean Peninsula. The report could not be independently verified, and Russia did not immediately comment. Oseni and the neighboring town of Staromensky have been the scene of fierce fighting in recent days as Ukrainian forces press their counteroffensive. The towns are an important link between the Russian-controlled areas of the Donetsk region and the Russian-occupied parts of southern Ukraine, including the Azov seaports of Mariupol and Bernyansk. Meanwhile, a cargo ship has left the Ukrainian Black Sea port of Odessa in a test of what the Ukrainian government has described as a temporary humanitarian corridor to allow commercial ships to leave its ports despite a Russian blockade. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Kubakov announced on Facebook that the Hong Kong flagship left Odessa early on Wednesday. The ship had been struck in Odessa since arriving there on February 23, 2022, one day before Moscow launched its full-scale invasion on Ukraine. It was reportedly carrying more than 2,000 containers with 30,000 metric tons of goods. Kiev announced the so-called humanitarian corridor on August 8 in an effort to enable ships that have been trapped in the port of Konomorsk, Odessa, Pivdeny to leave. Russia has commented on the initiative and stated whether it would respect the corridor. Now, Thai BPS has published a report stating that military-ruled Myanmar will give up its chairmanship of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in 2026 due to the intensifying conflict within the country. The report was based on unnamed diplomatic sources who claim that the military junta will not chair ASEAN due to the domestic situation and the country's unpreparedness. According to Thai PBS, the rotating chair will instead be taken up by the Philippines, and Myanmar will defer its chairmanship until 2027. Laos is slated to chair the Southeast Asian bloc next year, followed by Malaysia in 2025. While the decision has yet to be confirmed by either Myanmar or the Philippines, it would not be surprising given the extent and magnitude of the challenges currently facing Myanmar's military and the likely Western backlash should it be allowed to host high-level Asian meetings. Myanmar did much the same in 2006 when the junta of the day agreed to forego its chairmanship amid Western pressure regarding the imprisonment of National League for Democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other human rights issues. Now, former Finnish Prime Minister has stated that he will be a candidate in Finland's presidential election due in January of 2024. His announcement came after incumbent Premier Petteri Orpo asked Stubb to become the National Coalition Party's candidate. Alex Stubb, currently a professor and director of European University Institute in Florence, Italy, held several ministerial posts before serving as Prime Minister between 2014 and 2015. Among those who have announced their candidacies for the presidential elections are Finland's former Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto, academic Foreign Minister Mika Autola, and Bank of Finland Governor Olli Rehn. Now, Baku has strongly rejected accusations regarding the La Chain road that is stated were made by the French Foreign Minister in her phone call with her Armenian counterpart on Tuesday. The ministry repeated the offer to provide aid to ethnic Armenians via Agdam, an Azerbaijani-controlled town east of Nagorno-Karabakh region. In her telephone conversation with Armenia's Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, Catherine Colonna, Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France in particular, stated that Azerbaijan's actions contradict the obligations that it undertook under the terms of the ceasefire agreement and harm the negotiation process. Colonna also reportedly gave assurances about the willingness of France to support the population of Nagorno-Karabakh and also announced that France intends to make an additional allocation of €3 million for the activities of the International Committee of the Red Cross in the region. Now, Nigerians are preparing for a possible invasion by countries in the region 3 weeks after soldiers ousted the nation's democratically elected president. Residents in the capital, Niamey, are calling for a mass recruitment of volunteers to assist the army in the face of the growing threats by the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS, which says it will use military force if the junta does not reinstate the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. ECOWAS has activated a standby force to restore order in Niger after the junta ignored a deadline to reinstate and release Bazoum. Amsaru Bako, one of the founders, told reporters that the initiative, spearheaded by a group of locals in Niamey, aims to recruit tens of thousands of volunteers from across the country to register for the Volunteers for the Defense of Niger to fight, assist with medical care, and provide technical and engineering logistics, among other functions, in case the junta needs help. Regional tensions are deepening as the standoff between Niger and ECOWAS shows no signs of diffusing, despite signals from both sides that they are open to resolving the crisis peacefully. And finally, on the world news, global humanitarian leaders have again called on Sudan's warring sides to cease their fighting that they say has engulfed the Northeast African nation, affecting millions. Sudan has been submerged in 4 months of bloody fighting that erupted on April 15 between the Sudanese armed forces and its breakaway rapid support forces. On Tuesday, leaders of the United Nations' various humanitarian branches called on the two sides to end the conflict while asking the international community to open their wallets and fund aid. According to the latest assessments from the UN's International Organization for Migration, more than 4.25 million people have been forced to flee their homes in Sudan because of the fighting, including 3.2 million internally displaced and nearly 1 million who have crossed borders into neighboring countries like Egypt, Libya, Chad, Central African Republic, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. And that's it on the World News on VOP TV. I'm Kayla Abraham, VOP Business Show coming up next.